Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So, we're diving straight into some massive breaking news today, stuff that could literally reshape the entire geopolitical map. We are looking at a potential diplomatic end to the 3-month US-Iran war. Now, there is a ton of noise out there right now, so we are going to methodically cut through it all. We'll unpack the claims, the counterclaims, and look at exactly what's sitting on the negotiating table as we speak.
To do that efficiently, here's our roadmap. First up, the peace deal announcement. Next, we'll look inside the proposed agreement, then tackle the Hormuz contention, explore the unresolved nuclear question, and finally, look at the next steps for peace.
Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1. The peace deal announcement, a potential end to the war.
So, the whole catalyst for this explainer is a major announcement from US President Donald Trump. He jumped on Truth Social over the weekend and posted this exact statement. An agreement has been largely negotiated, subject to finalization between the United States of America, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and the various other countries. Obviously, that's a massive statement. It officially suggests the framework for ending this 3-month war is mostly built, and we're just waiting on the final details.
But it's crucial to remember this didn't just happen in a vacuum. Right alongside that Iran announcement, Trump also confirmed he had parallel positive discussions with Israel. He mentioned a separate call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu regarding the deal, and specifically noted the conversation went, quote, very well. So what we're seeing here are multiple, high-level diplomatic tracks moving at the exact same time.
Which brings us to Part 2, inside the proposed agreement from the Iranian perspective. All right, we've heard the U.S. side of things, but what are the actual diplomatic terms on the table from Tehran's point of view? To grasp the framework here, we need to understand a very specific term, the 14-clause MOU. This is a proposed memorandum of understanding outlined by Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Baghai. His statement strictly focused on ending what he called the imposed war across all fronts. And, this is key, he explicitly noted that this includes Lebanon. So we aren't just tossing around vague ideas of peace here, we are talking about a highly structured 14-point diplomatic framework.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how clearly Iran lays out the specific demands they expect to be met. The major topics in this 14-clause MOU include the cessation of U.S. maritime attacks, which, by the way, the Iranians refer to as a naval blockade. It also firmly demands ending the war on all fronts and, crucially, calls for the release of Iranian frozen assets. Make no mistake, these are the tangible, major concessions being negotiated right now.
Moving on to Part 3, the Hormuz contention and the contrasting claims.
Now, looking past that broad framework, here is where we hit some serious diplomatic friction, specifically around the global maritime choke point, the Strait of Hormuz. On one hand, you have President Trump stating that the Strait of Hormuz would be reopened as a part of the proposed understanding. But directly contradicting that is the Iranian stance. Iran completely rejected that claim, maintaining they will keep control over Hormuz. They stated they'd only allow passing ships to return to pre-war levels and explicitly noted this does not mean a return to free passage. Wow. That is a massive point of contention sitting right in the middle of these supposedly largely negotiated talks. And seeing that huge disagreement over maritime control naturally begs another absolutely vital question. What about the nuclear program?
Let's get into Part 4, the unresolved nuclear question and the IRGC response.
I mean, it's been the elephant in the room for years, right? So how exactly does it fit into this current deal? Well, it kinda doesn't. There's a glaring omission in Trump's recent announcement. He completely left out the nuclear program. This is a pretty massive shift. Previously, he'd explicitly stated that negotiations about Iran's nuclear program were an absolute inseparable condition of any agreement. The fact that it's just entirely missing from this current victory lap, that is highly, highly significant.
And you better believe Iran's Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC, was incredibly quick to pounce on that omission. Through the Fars news agency, they released a direct response, flat out calling the post propaganda. Their exact words were, "No commitment has been made by Iran, and the nuclear issue has not been discussed at this stage." So if we go by the IRGC's statements, any nuclear concessions are just completely off the table in this specific 14-clause MOU.
Which naturally leads us to Part 5, next steps for peace and the broader regional outlook. Okay, keeping those pretty deep divisions in mind, let's zoom out for a second from the direct US-Iran tension. Because right now there's a massive, massive scale of diplomacy happening behind the scenes.
A huge number of Middle Eastern nations are actively stepping in to facilitate these talks. Field Marshal Asim Munir actually represented Pakistan in a call with Trump. Plus, the talks have actively included leaders from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, Egypt, the UAE, and Jordan. And this brilliantly illustrates just how many players are involved here. Very importantly, Pakistan has formally stated its intention to host the next round of these peace talks.
So regional momentum is really building, and Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif emphasized exactly that. Posting on X, he said, "The discussions provided a useful opportunity. Pakistan will continue its peace efforts with utmost sincerity, and we hope to host the next round of talks very soon." He also publicly congratulated Trump on his peace efforts. Really, it just highlights the heavy diplomatic lifting being done right now by regional allies who are, frankly, highly motivated to bring a lasting end to this conflict.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. Will these unresolved final details ultimately derail the path to peace? We've got a 14-clause framework on the table and massive multinational support behind it. But when you look at those fundamental disagreements over the Strait of Hormuz and the complete omission of the nuclear issue, this largely negotiated deal remains incredibly complex and, honestly, pretty fragile. The next round of talks in Pakistan is going to be absolutely pivotal. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helped clear up some of those headlines for you, and as always, keep learning.